Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you all here. We are just getting started. We've got two amazing guests, Tanya and Kimberly. I will be doing a special intro of them soon, but we're waiting for everyone to come on. Everyone find your chat window if you haven't seen it, and let us all know where you are baking from and how you're feeling. Every week of this pandemic has been so incredibly different, and I just want to do a check-in with all of you on where are you baking from and what's the mood? How are you feeling? Depleted, energized, depressed, hopeful, energized, hopefully energized, but let us know. Okay, we got JP, always good to be in this room from Sacramento. Wonderful to have you here. Kari, Battleground, happy to be here. We got Melissa, ooh, Lake Tahoe, you have changed locations. Everyone, we are posting, just while we're waiting for everyone to come in. Shalom from La Jolla, North Carolina. Happy to have made it to the Challah Bake, a major accomplishment from Sheridan. I get it. It's always I always get dressed on Fridays for the Challah Bake, which is a big accomplishment for me right now. It's a shower and dressing. And anyone else, let's see, Emmy from Berkeley. Tara Lee, peace to everyone, feeling hopeful this morning from Washington. Sarah, Sway, no yeast, but we're baking ideas with great company in LA. That is absolutely correct. Yeah, there are some people that were like, I don't have yeast. I'm like, just come and hear from Tanya and Kimberly about election work. That is absolutely fine. Oh, yep. So we got, no. My daughters are here, not on right now. We have, let's see, Livia from Italy. And wait, my daughter's pulling me away. Sorry, do you want to read some while Bluma needs me for 1 second? Okay.
I'm in the screenshot. Jennifer from LA, feeling happy to be here. Good. We like to hear hope here. Good. Lots of hope. I'd love to hear, hope has been an interesting thing that people have been maybe starting to feel more of this week, maybe not. Mill Valley, Rachel from Tucson, Arizona. Coronavirus numbers going up, a bit concerned with 2 kids, Finn and Katie. Hi, Finn and Katie. Marsha from Oakland. Muir Woods, lots of California today. That's awesome. Hi from San Antonio. And voting, woohoo!
All right, I'm back. Thank you, Sawyer. Okay, we have such a good group of people here. Let's see, Tina. Wait, what did you say? Like the glasses, Tiffany. Thank you. I was just saying I'm needing them a lot more, but they relaxed my eyes. I went to an acupuncturist this last week who said that my chi was feeling depleted, and so I'm doing everything to ease my body right now, and glasses are a big part of that. We've got, let's see, Barbara from San Diego. Wonderful. Okay, I'm so happy you're all here. This feels like an incredibly important bake to happen. I know there's going to be, oh, Livia. We have Livia from Italy. How are you doing? Will you unmute yourself?
Hi, guys.
How are things in Italy?
Hi, everybody. What did you just ask?
How are things in Italy? What's the general vibe in Italy right now?
Yeah, it's like, it's just, as I said in the chat, it's been a strange week for me. Somehow it's been hard, although we are reopening and life seems to flood the streets again. But I have felt a little bit of like disillusion in my fellow human beings around, because most people, they seem to have forgotten what's happened. They just don't wear masks and they do as nothing has happened, and there are like people going out off for weekends, and I have been battling with like a mixed feelings about that, like reevaluating some people, I have to say.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Yeah. I think we're kind of feeling that. I'm in Northern California, and there's a lot of reopening happening too. And I remember my brother, when he was volunteering in Queens, New York, in the heat of the pandemic, and we asked him what he was most afraid of. As we asked everyone for this movie we're trying to make, this situation, and he said, I'm most afraid that people are going to forget this moment. What if we forget this moment? Too. And how that would be such a horrible thing. So we're actually in an incredible moment. In addition, and I know you gave us the perspective in Italy of Black Lives Matter. But in America, we are in the heat of that moment, and we are really excited today to talk to Tanya and Kimberly about the election because, you know, I'm not sure how it is in Italy, but in America, we have such bad leadership through even the wearing the mask, like, just like what you were saying, or not wearing the mask, and then equality for people. So I want to give a formal introduction right now to these two amazing women. First, we have Kimberly Ellis. Let's spotlight. Okay. So Kimberly Ellis is amazing. I just feel so fortunate that we met at this very powerful women's conference called The What, and I heard her read such a powerful poem about the goddess and about power. So I knew immediately we'd be friends. And then she's run Emerge, which helps women run for office and mentors them. She's doing a lot of important work right now for the election, which I was going to talk to us about as the yeast is rising. And I'm so grateful you're here to talk about your feelings about this moment we're in, and now not to take our eyes off the ball for the election. We also have Tanya Selvaratnam, who is a very good friend of mine. She's an amazing filmmaker, author. She executive produced the Planned Parenthood film I directed a couple years ago, and has a new book coming out about intimate violence. That'll be coming out early 2021. And she's going to talk about her work for the election because she's an amazing activist, and she's in New York right now, in Portland, because everyone's gotten out of Manhattan, right? A lot of people. So you're going to be talking about that. So I also want to just, I want to see, we have some new people here. So what we normally do, I'm going to let them talk about their stuff, but while the yeast is rising, so that's the best time to talk. So everybody, I'm going to walk you through the first step. You want to bring Rosie over? Okay, wait, I'm getting 1 second. So we have a packet of yeast. Sabrina's going to put the recipe in the chat. And if you don't have the Fleischmann's, where can you find the recipe? Sabrina is going to pop that into the chat right now. And Carrie is from Long Island, and she's going to listen and watch. There are quite a few people listening and watching. Okay, Sabrina just put the link for the actual recipe, but I am going to now cut my yeast packet, which is like 2 1/3 teaspoons, but she's going to put that exact measurement. There you go. We're so well. This is like our week 12 of doing this, but we got it down. We know the questions. I'm going to put,
Tiffany, can you show what's up? Thank you, the size bowl.
I'm using a big bowl because I like the biggest cup for my challah. So I put the yeast in, and I'm going to put 1 cup of hot water in here, and I'm going to pour it in, and then we're going to talk about the election. Right? Okay, I'm now putting my 1 very hot cup of water in, and I'm going to get my daughter something to read while she's snuggling with the puppy. Be right back. Where is it? Right here? Yeah. Okay, so I am taking a fork. I am stirring my yeast with the hot water, and then there's one more thing I'm going to do before we talk about the election. I'm going to put 1/3 cup of sugar. I have to say, we had a chef, Katie Morford, on last week, who's doing all this amazing work for food scarcity during the pandemic, and I love her cooking. And she had never made this challah recipe before, and she texted me that it was her favorite challah recipe. I only have 1 real recipe I'm proud of, and this is it, so it made me very happy. So I'm putting my 1/3 of sugar in here because that helps it all activate. So now in this very big bowl, I have my yeast. I have my 1/3 cup of sugar, and I have 1 cup of water, and Livia has told me to try the salt at the very end, so that's what we're doing. No salt right now. And now, because I know Kimberly's getting her ingredients ready, I'm gonna start with Tanya.
Tiffany, sorry, actually try the salt in the egg. That's what I do. I put the salt in the egg. When I mix the egg and the oil, I put a little salt in there, and then I just find that it's raising so much better.
We'll do that for that next step. And everyone, I know there's a lot of filmmakers here because, you know, I'm a filmmaker, Tanya's a filmmaker, and I see a lot of filmmakers. Livia had written to me a couple weeks ago that she's looking for films to distribute in Italy. So
Yeah.
if anyone has films they're interested in getting distributed in Italy, Livia is my filmmaking friend from Italy. We can connect you. So now, on to the election. Tanya, first of all, just give us your general thoughts about how you're feeling in this particularly intense moment in America, and then what you're doing for the election and what we can do.
Well, I think about what Michelle Alexander wrote in the Times earlier this week when she said, "Our only hope for our collective liberation is a politics of deep solidarity rooted in love." And I'm really focusing on that to be my North Star right now. For myself, I have a 4-point plan that I always keep top of mind, and that is educate, donate, elevate, and activate.
Oh, I love that. I want a shirt that said that. So good.
It's, IDEA. And what I mean by educate, it's like educate yourself and also share information with friends and family and your network. At this moment, we really have to talk about racism and dismantling institutional racism with our friends and families who might not yet understand. And we have to listen to each other and hopefully change minds. When I say donate, I mean, especially in this current moment, give to bail funds, give to racial justice organizations, and for my personal work, domestic violence organizations. And when I say elevate, amplify the art and voices of Black thinkers right now. And when I say activate, I think of Killer Mike's call, which now has gone all over the world, which is to plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize. And that means holding elected officials accountable, calling for criminal justice reform. I don't pay attention to polls. I don't listen to them at all. I just keep reminding myself that we have a lot of work to do. Because I feel our biggest challenge right now for the next many months is to making sure that people want to vote, that they don't feel like they have to vote. And I think we haven't gotten there yet. And I think we also have to remind ourselves that there are a lot of Americans who still live in pre-pandemic America and who still idealize pre-Civil War America. And we have to somehow have sympathy for them, but also do the work to help kind of persuade and change consciousness. So that's what I'm really focusing on. I'm on the National Arts Policy Committee, so part of that involves putting together a coalition of artists, which I'm just at the beginning of, and to really hope that, I think about what Darren Walker says, without art, there is no empathy, and without empathy, there is no justice. So I really am focused on how to mobilize the arts community to help the election. And I tell people, it's a few weeks or a few months of your time to change the future, because that's really the moment we're in right now. And I'm also focused on my love for Tiffany Shlain.
I'll take that.
And as Tiffany said, she directed the launch video for the Unstoppable campaign that I produced for Planned Parenthood, which I'm proud to say won a Webby Award.
Which I had nothing to do with.
On its own merits. So everybody should check that out. So that'd
be fun to put. Actually, Cabrina, let's put the links to the Unstoppable films. They're all short films that different women directors did for Tanya, for Planned Parenthood. So that we'll put those in the follow-up email. Thank you so much for all of that, Tanya. I love the work you do, and you have your hands in so many different amazing organizations, and you inspire so many people. So we'll come back to you and ask a little bit more details, but thank you for all of that. And Kimberly, you and I had such a soulful conversation the other night, and I was wondering if you could share some of those thoughts and what you're doing and what we can do.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank Tanya, because I think she really hit the nail on the head in so many ways, and I really, really appreciated, to your point, Killer Mike's heartfelt remarks during that press conference in Atlanta. African-American activist, rapper, very politically engaged and astute, talking about the struggle that he was having in this moment as someone who has family members who were police officers in Georgia, and the sort of crossroads that he personally felt that he was in, but then reminding us, to Tanya's point, that we really have to, keep our eyes on the prize and really focus and not get distracted by a lot of the I believe manufactured chaos and noise coming out of the White House specifically. But we have to get organized, we have to mobilize, we have to use this time to plot and plan and work together. And the conversation that Tiffany and I had the other day was really, it was sort of it was sort of COVID, pre-George Floyd, and then during it and now after. And what I was sharing was that I really feel in many respects that the global pandemic has been a blessing in disguise, because it has really forced us and laid bare before all of our eyes so many of the structural injustices that are woven into the very fabric of our society. And that in many ways, it felt like Mother Nature put us all on a collective timeout, that we were no longer able to use the many and varied distractions to really look deeply and hardly in the mirror at who we were individually and collectively and what we had become. And so it's forcing us to see things that before we either would avert our eyes and not look at directly, or come up with excuses for why they were. And so I was expressing gratitude for the pandemic, obviously, devastation and loss of life aside, that it really was an opportunity for us to do some deep reflection and figure out where we wanted to come out on the other side. And very specifically, my girlfriends that I was speaking with, and especially women of color in particular, and Black women, but really all women, really need to understand that our future, our collective future, is really we are creating that right now in this moment through our actions and our words, and equally with our thoughts. And so we need to be very mindful of that and really making sure that we're focused on the positive and how we want to rebuild and refashion our society on the other side of this. That is happening right now. And so to your point, Tiffany, about, keeping our eye on the prize, November is coming. And I think that for me, I am hopeful, but I want us to look at what happened in Georgia on Tuesday as a big red flag as to what we should expect from the other side as we get closer to November. The level of voter suppression in this country is disgusting. And it will only get worse, I think, as the other side really recognizes that they are on the verge of losing complete power. And so I want us to, going back to what Tanya was saying, use this time to really evaluate our lives and every aspect of how we are living our lives, to readjust so that we are helping to invest with our time, talent, and treasure in rebuilding the parts of our society that need to be rebuilt. To Tanya's point, we have to do a better job of inspiring and motivating the electorate to come out and vote. And very specifically, and Tiffany and I have talked about this lots of times, 3 demographics that constitute the new American majority. They are single women, people of color, and millennials, young people. I think it's probably at this point Gen Z who are recently aging into the system, turning 18 for the first time and able to vote. So we have to do a really good job of investing in organizations that are registering and have a plan to turn out those voters in the 5 or 6 states that are going to determine November's election. And then lastly, I will say this: it is not just about the White House. We have to invest in down ballot races. We have to invest in DA races, in sheriff's races. We have to understand that it's all a part of interwoven system, and we need to ensure that we are filling the pipeline with social justice oriented public servants who will be there to do the work of the people.
So, I got chills when both of you were speaking, and yes, I would love if you had any specific organizations, and we talked about bailout fund, but what about the organizations for the election? Like I think I forwarded you, Kimberly, this one. It was like Voter Action Center about focusing on the 3 areas. Are there any organizations specifically on voter suppression or on these specific 3 groups that you think are worthy of donating to or finding out more or doing calls for? I just signed up to do calls in swing states, but what do you think actionable items all these bakers could do?
Well, there are 2 things. Number one, I would love to put together a list for you.
Wonderful.
Of organizations, because I think that what I have seen is, I think what is the natural response of us as people when something horrible happens, we immediately donate to whatever is the quickest first thing we can find. And oftentimes those organizations are national organizations, which are absolutely critical and important. And also we need to pair that with local organizations that are doing the work on the ground. So what I'd love to do is put together a list that you can share out with the community of both national organizations, but also local ones in those specific swing states that we are going to need in order to win. So for example, I think California is amazing and fabulous, and we are a leader on so many levels. I personally would opt to invest in an organization that's in Wisconsin, that's going to work in Madison and Milwaukee in the Black and brown areas, that is going to work on turning voters out in that state, in those cities particular, so that we can take Wisconsin, because we're going to need those electoral votes in order to win. So that's what I would offer to do, is to put together a list.
We will definitely have a list, and Tanya, you can put any links in the chat too. And Bluma would like to say hello. Bluma just walked by, and Sawyer, can you pin Bluma and Rosalind Franklin, and we call her Rosie the Riveter.
Hi,
Rosie. And she's now, how many weeks is she now?
3.
No, not 3 months almost.
12.
12 weeks. 12 weeks. She's bringing a lot of love and inspiring us, because dogs are all about love, and we need a lot more love in society. And now they're exiting. Bluma is love for me too. So the puppy, the future. I'm thinking we all want a more just society for the future of the next generation. And I am really hopeful. Odessa also. It was so exciting to see just the breadth of the protesters, and everyone's it started, I think, with the gun reform like last year, a couple years ago, but they are so fired up. And if we can get the youth and all the newly minted 18-year-olds, as Kimberly was saying, that is so valuable. And I do think art and films and poetry and whatever way you can come into this, or if you're just really good on the phone, I'll put in the link an organization where you can do calls, which I think is also important. And then there's postcard writing, but like, what are the specific, and I like what Kimberly was saying, there's like the big national ones and then the really local ones, which are so important. Tanya, did you want to add any specific organizations that you're working with or that you're thinking about?
Yeah, there's so many, soon after the protests began, on actually the Obama Foundation's website, they put a link that made it very easy for people to donate to local bail funds. So if you go to the Anguish and Action page on the Obama Foundation website, there is a link there, and there's a list of, I think, 20 different bail fund organizations. So I was able to pick different ones.
You said that, because I did one that felt like I didn't know where it was going, and it would have felt better if I knew it was local communities. I also, Lauren Schiller. Actually, Lauren, do you want to just ask this? Where are you? Can you raise your hand on here? Lauren has a great show on NPR. She does amazing work in this space also. Let's see, where are you, Lauren? Let me
Here.
You. Okay. You had a question or your comment. Hello.
Hello. Thank you, Tiffany, for hosting this every week. I get my bread in and my activism all in one go. It's awesome. And so, yeah, I have a question for Kimberly and Tanya, who I'm so excited to see you here. I saw you at the What as well and was equally inspired, although not as, I guess I didn't go introduce myself like Tiffany did. But the question I have for both of you is, I've been at several protests where the speakers have talked about how voting is not where we need to be putting our energy right now, that taking to the streets is all that matters. And I know Stacey Abrams did an op-ed on this recently, that we really do need to do both. And I'm concerned about the message that we're hearing at these actions, because there's so many young people there, and that's the generation that we really need to be getting engaged in the vote and taking advantage of that tool, as well as, you know, activating their voice on the streets. So I'm curious if you've been hearing that, if you've been running into that, how you each respond to that that message.
Do either of you, Kimberly or Tanya, have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we have lots of thoughts on that. I think it's going to, I think people are going to be taking to the streets up until the election and probably beyond. And that's going to be really, really important to have that visual show of force, but also using the opportunity of the protest to really highlight the importance of voting, because unless you vote, our voices won't make a difference. And we've seen how deleterious an impact having the wrong leaders at the local and national levels have on our collective community, but especially on communities of color. And Kimberly, so you know, succinctly and pointed out the three different swaths of the population that we really have to focus on. And I just want to highlight what Kimberly said about really focusing on local organizations, because what we saw in the last election, I mean, people, I think, distract themselves by talking about the impact of hacking and Russian interference and et cetera. Yes, all very important to discuss, but we can't forget the fact that the margins should have never been that close to begin with. And I think when you look at what happened in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and the narrow sliver by which the electoral vote was won, that can be totally eliminated, that narrow sliver, if we turn out enough people, especially young people, to vote this year. And I see in Portland, Oregon, where a friend has been documenting the protests here, which have been very, very heated. And he has done these amazing interviews with young people and also people on the police force. And the general thread that he's capturing with young people is that they're not excited to vote. And that is really eye-opening for me. And I think it's something that we take for granted because of all of the activism that's happening now, which is why I'm really focused in my own work on making sure that people get excited to vote. So yeah, that's what
I mean, that's interesting. I mean, just as now, this is my filmmaker voice speaking, because Sawyer and I have been really struggling actually with the film we've been trying to make about the pandemic. And every week has felt so different. I told both Kimberly and Tanya these struggles because creatively it's just been such a challenge to put our arms around what's happening. And then Sawyer and I, we've been thinking about maybe turning it into an election film, because at first it was a film just to show the breadth of fear and creativity and empathy and kindness and you know, all the different parts of the pandemic and the misinformation, and just in a 5-minute film. But we were thinking, like, what if it really like all went to and vote, like something that really pushed all that energy we've all, that experience that we've all had, and realized this is an amazing moment, like Kimberly said, to reset. I mean, when else have we had? I think before the pandemic, it's like I kept thinking, what's it going to take? Wait, Kimberly, did you want to add something there?
Well, yeah. So I think I just want to go back to what Tanya said, because I think this is why it was so incredible for so many parts of the country, and I would offer more educated, sort of left-leaning people to fathom that Hillary Clinton could have lost, or that it was even that close. And the reality is that so many parts of this country live is vastly different from the way that many of us, live, in that, as it relates to voting specifically, a lot of people don't believe in our system. A lot of people don't believe that our system works. A lot of people believe that our system is corrupted and rigged. And in many respects, it is. And so how can we blame people for not, young people, for people of color, for not being excited about voting if they don't believe that that system actually works, if they have personally seen and experienced a system that that doesn't work for them? And so I'm not surprised at all that young people, even people of color, you know, still are not excited about voting because they don't believe that the system actually works. And so I think, number one, again, we really need to understand the amount of privilege that so many of us bring to this, you know, especially those who are, you know, are part of your audience in this conversation. It's not the reality that so many people in this country live. And so I just think it's really important that we understand that we have a broken democracy in so many ways that has failed so many parts of our society in so many ways. And until we fix those, which is not going to take months, it's not going to take years, it's going to take decades. Until we commit to fixing those, we're going to have a lot of skepticism. And then the last thing I want to share is I was on a fundraising call yesterday for an organization that I'm a part of, and one of the board members spoke about his mom. I think he's originally from one of the Scandinavian countries, and he was talking about his mom back in 1969 writing an essay on racism in America and how solving racism really is the work of white people. And so I say that to say that as it relates to a lot of the systems and, you know, getting elected officials in place, the protests are great, and I think we need those. But as someone who has been protesting literally my entire life, I personally am over protest. I don't need to go to protests anymore. I would like to see the protests turn to policy, which means that we are going to have to hold our elected officials accountable. And a big part of that is having white allies in this moment be willing to stand with us and to hold those elected officials and the powers that be accountable.
Wonderful. That's so powerful what you said. And actually, I see someone that I'd love to call on, Cress. Are you cool if I, so Cress did an amazing thing. This is my neighbor, and was it last week, Cress? Oh, you're on mute, hun. Can you go off mute? So Cress, you know, we had a big protest here in Marin City. I think it was on Tuesday, and then Cress, who has 3 biracial children, hosted a community discussion 6 feet apart in Sycamore Park. In my whole 50 years of living around here, I've never gone to something like that. And do you want to tell us a little bit about what you did and what your goals are with it?
Sure. Well, I decided to do something, I think that Saturday before, because I had been away for about 4 days down in LA and out of internet contact and everything. And I came back, and my 2 older daughters, who are 28 and 31, were really, to put it frankly, pretty broken. And so it was a personal thing for me. I felt like I needed to do something. And I was just really angry, and I've got a son too who's 18, and you know, we've been dealing with this issues in Mill Valley for a while, just on a small level and within our family, of trying to get people to understand what it's like to be Black in this community and raise children with no, you know, mirrors around and all of that. But when this happened and I saw my children so devastated, I decided I needed to do something, and I know I needed help because this is not really my forte. So I called on some amazing friends and we put together this group, and we just wanted to be really an action group, not sit around and talk about our feelings. And we wanted to address our white privilege, but we also wanted to get down to work. So we had some speakers, we read some statistics, we got the whole group. There's about 60 people that showed up, and then we broke into small groups and took on different systems and started coming up with action plans. And of course, this was like all put together in a couple of days. So we did our best. I did my best to try to have it be organized and action oriented, and I think we did pretty good for the first meeting.
It was amazing. And she just sent a follow-up It was really powerful. Just sent a follow-up email with our specific action. And you want to say the name of the, you have an Instagram
The
handle?
group is now, it's called Raise the Frequency Mill Valley, or MV, Raise the Frequency MV. So what we decided after a week of talking with everybody and different people in the community, Black and white, like what's it gonna take for us to understand the Black experience here, and also to be allies, and to also look at our own racism as white people. And what we came to is trying to ask the city council for money to create this multicultural center, that whether it's a physical place or it's a pop-up, to bring in speakers, workshops, events where we have DJs, and we have Black makers doing fashion and art, and the whole vibe. And when I spoke up, I don't know if you know, Tiffany, I spoke downtown in the depot to the mayor, and I spoke for 5 minutes. I kind of got in her face, and there was a lot of F-bombs thrown, and which I didn't realize until later. But I basically said, we need art, we need music, and we need fashion, and we need restaurants represented by all types of people. That's what's going to make Mill Valley amazing and great. And I know there's enough of us that want that. And so this multicultural center will be a reflection of all that, hopefully, and celebrate all that. And through that, we can do workshops and work with communities to build a stronger, more diverse, more supportive and inclusive Mill Valley and beyond.
Yeah, Chris, I'm so grateful you did it. And on a community level, back to what you were saying, Kimberly, like it was so real. And I had just been to the protest, which was also so real, but different. And obviously I'm very interested in election activism, but sitting on the grass with 60 people in groups of 10 and coming up with like an actionable plan was so powerful. And she's already got emails going. And anyway, so that's something that's given me hope. There's been a lot of things that have given me hope. And I think that's what's also interesting is just, now I'm gonna bring it back to the challah, because I'm also wanting to make sure your yeast is rising, but something rising. There's hope is rising. And how's your yeast doing? Because we are actually making bread. Give me a thumbs up if your yeast is rising. I'm going to gallery view. Thumbs up. Ooh, Kari, your yeast isn't rising. Oh my goodness. Okay, everyone else's yeast is rising. Shoot. You might need to try another packet, Kari, because sometimes you just get a bad packet of yeast. My yeast looks very foamy. I'm gonna show you. Kimberly, how's your yeast looking? It's good. Okay, you're on mute. I'm taking you off of mute.
Okay. Yeah,
Mine's off of mute. God, I'm so grateful we're doing this. You know, I have to say, I just, you know, I'll tell you a thought. Has anyone seen Mrs. America on Hulu about Phyllis Schlafly? Give me a thumbs up if you've seen it. Has anyone seen it? It's all about the ERA and Phyllis Schlafly and how she like derailed it. But there's a funny scene. There's several funny scenes about how the Phyllis Schlafly, all the women that were trying to derail the ERA, would bake bread and give it to the politicians to sway them to believe that the ERA would be bad. Well, obviously, it would be bad because then their wives would work and wouldn't bake them bread. But look at us. We're all baking bread, and we're out in the world, and we're activists. So just, I don't know. I think it's a fun twist if you see that movie and see that scene, that you can bake bread and be a badass feminist activist. Okay, make sure your water's not too hot. Some people are giving you some yeast advice. I really appreciate that. We are gonna move on to the next step. Is everyone cool if we move on to the next step with the baking, and then we will have some more discussion? So the next step here is that we're gonna get our flour ready. So I have my yeast in this big bowl. It's super blooming. That's what I call it, blooming. And I'm gonna get my measuring cup. Kimberly, you got your measuring cup? And I'm gonna do 1.5 cups of flour. Now, one of the chefs, I think it was Katie, says it's really good to take a knife and make an even cut. I'm gonna do that. I don't normally do that, but I'm a work in progress, like all of us, like this country. I am learning.
Is it the different bowl or the same bowl?
I am going to put it in the same big bowl, this step. I'm putting 1.5 cups
while you guys are measuring, I'm just noting, I love the chat thread so much that it's like heated politic conversation, yeast, politics, flour, how hot the water, politics. Like the flip-flop is just amazing. And everybody just take a moment and read.
I was noticing that too. It's so fun. I agree. Now, I've discovered for stirring my yeast, these silicone, I used to use a fork, but I'm really enjoying using a silicone, whatever you have to use it. But I put a cup and a half of flour in my yeast sugar blooming mixture, and I'm going to start to stir it. Now, I normally would put salt in. I am not doing that. I'm following Livia, the brilliant Italian, to tell me to put salt in at the end in my oil and egg, which I'm going to do, because you know what? Now, if you like to taste your batter, this is a really good time because it's only got sugar, flour, and yeast, and that means it's really yummy. But I'm mixing it together. I don't have my overhead camera shot because I got a puppy and I'm very busy in the morning now. Okay, but I'm mixing that together. Everyone mixing that? Everyone good? Give me the thumbs up. You're all good. You're mixing. Awesome. Okay, now, oh, there was a really fun article today in the San Francisco Chronicle that mentions the challah bake, if you want to read it. It's very fun. Okay, now I am taking a bowl, small little bowl, and I'm going to put my 1 egg. Crack that 1 egg in your bowl, small bowl. And I am doing 1/4 of a cup of canola oil. 1/4 of a cup. And I'm going to put that with my egg. And then Livia, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this when I put my salt in? I'm going to unmute you. And you're...
Yes.
Okay.
This is when I put my salt on, and I'm actually curious to see how it works for you because you're in a different climate. So if it works as well as it worked for me.
Yeah, and the salt is 1/2 tablespoon. So listen, we're going with the Italian because you guys have really good bread there. You.
We have an ancient tradition of bread making.
You do. You do have an ancient tradition. What's the politics like in Italy? You got a good leader right now?
Well, we have a complex situation.
I think
and when I don't remember when they said that that people are getting disillusioned with politics. I think that we are now at the point of the political curve in Italy when the all anti-politics, weaponized anti-politics kind of discourse has brought some of its offspring. So we have a government that is actually a mixture of like far-right issues in disguise. And the far-right issues in disguise, you can see in how we treat the immigrants. So it's amazing all that it's happening in the United States, and of course Black Lives Matter, and of course there is not such a thing as race. It's an invention, but I cannot help to think every time I see the protests in the streets that not all Black lives matter in the same way. As we speak, there are every day Black people dying in the Mediterranean Sea. There is no one government in the whole of Europe that is willing to address the mess that they have created with the immigration. And all these Black people, they just like flee Africa for many reasons, like economical, climate change, war, persecution, and they often spend a couple of years in what they are real concentration camps that the European government have set up in Libya. They are tortured. Many of them die even before trying to cross the sea. And very often when they cross the sea, they die at sea because there is no policy to help them get through the intricate network of the system. So
I'll ask you, did the, and then I want to go, I just see that Sandy Dubowski is here, which I was very excited to see. Did they, I want to go, okay, I want to know if the Black Lives Matter protests seem to reach, do you feel like it reached the consciousness in Italy?
no, not at all, and it's really painful to see.
Okay.
Like there have not been like real protests. They have not been. I mean, I think it's also historical, right? Historically, our society has been white for until the last 20 years.
Okay.
You know, it's just about 20, 25 years that we had people from Africa coming and taking the very, you know, low paid jobs that Italians didn't want to do. So I feel we are like at the point where you were 400 years ago in America.
Interesting. Okay, I have to go. Let me, one thing, because I realized I didn't tell the next part of the recipe. Thank you, Livia. A couple things. Is Sandy Dubowski here, or is that a different Sandy? I have a friend who's an activist filmmaker in New York, and I was thinking maybe, and he's a friend of Tanya's and mine. I don't know if that's maybe a different Sandy, but I'm doing a shout out. If that is you, Sandy, I want you to share all the work you're doing, but it might not be you. Okay, I'm going back to my recipe for a second. I am now putting my canola oil, egg, and salt into the big bowl. My big bowl here, and I'm pouring it in, and it's gonna make this kind of funny looking mixture, but now I'm putting the rest of my flour. Usually when Bluma helps, but she has something to do. I'm putting another cup in here, and then I'm gonna put some flour on my hands. So Sawyer, you're really gonna need to move that camera around because I'm not gonna be able to touch anything. I have so much flour on my computer. I think I've destroyed my keypad because oh my gosh, putting your hands in, I've actually kind of missed this part. Plum, are you sure you don't wanna, you're good? She's gonna make breakfast. I have to say, she just graduated from 5th grade. Yes, today. It's been a very exciting couple weeks. And oh my gosh, this feels so good. Tanya, now I would love to hear, can you tell us a little bit about the arts organization? Because I know I've come to a couple meetings in Manhattan that you've done for them. And I know Sandy's also working on kind of artists for the election. Can you speak a little bit about that, Sawyer? Can you spotlight Tanya?
Hi. So yeah, I after the 2016 election, I had was trying to figure out how to activate the arts community, and specifically with the threats that were sure to come on vulnerable communities. And with the artist Laurie Anderson and the producer Laura Mikkelshishin, I put together a coalition called the Federation, and it had a very kind of laser focused mission, which was to keep cultural borders open and show how art unites us. And it still exists as a virtual coalition if you go to wearethefederation.org. But right now I'm in the process, as I mentioned before, of working on the National Arts Policy Committee and helping put together artists to support the campaign this year. There have been a lot of comments in the chat about people not being excited to vote for Biden, and I feel like I want to address that. So much is dependent on when the female vice presidential candidate gets announced.
Yes.
I think that is going to be a game changer. And when we start to hear more about potential cabinet picks, which I'm hoping will happen soon thereafter. And I think people have to remember it's not just about one person. You know, it's the way people focused on Trump after 2016, all this anger that still gets directed at Trump. And I feel like people kind of lose the core of what's going on, which is like Trump is the fruit, not the root of the problem. And when Kimberly talks about it is going to take us decades to get the country you know, where to a place where it feels like it's on the right track, we have to remember that it took decades to get the country into the quagmire it's in now. And that process of eroding voting rights and eroding civil rights really began decades ago. And right now we're seeing the explosion. And as painful as this moment is with the pandemic and the loss of life and loss of economic stability, we do have this unimaginable opportunity to reset and reboot. And I think about what Betty Reed Soskin and your dog, Rosie the Riveter. So Betty Reed Soskin is the oldest living national park ranger at Rosie the Riveter Park.
Yeah, did you
Right?
make a film for her? You made a film?
I did. I made a short film about her. So
She lives
Betty,
here in my city in Richmond. Woo!
woo! So Betty is one of my North Stars. And when I was speaking with her about tumult in the country, now she at 98 years old has seen a lot of tumult. And Betty says, you know, these moments, America has been through many moments of tumult. And it's in these moments of upheaval when we have access to the reset buttons and when democracy is being redefined. So I just want us to remember that. And I hope that I answered adequately the question about Biden and making sure that we don't focus on him being who we're voting for, but we're voting for the vice presidential candidate, the woman. We're voting for a new cabinet. We are voting for getting this country on a path to recognizing the humanity of all. Because
reminding us that.
One thing I just want to say too, it's like it is infuriating that the first rally for the GOP is going to be in Tulsa on June 19th. Like, the optics of that are undeniable, and we can make ourselves crazy thinking about those optics.
Mm-hmm.
But I always say, like, you know, Sarah Lewis, who founded the Vision and Justice Project, she always tells me turn anger into light. And so I think, you know, when people feel anger and rage, which is totally necessary right now, turn it into light. So that's what I would say.
Well, you always email me about Don't Agonize, Organize by Flo Kennedy. That's
Flo
another
Kennedy.
Flo Kennedy. And, you know, I wanted to, I've got
So good.
my husband Ken here, which always makes me happy when he does.
Again.
Hey, everybody.
And, you know, I make every Shabbat, I make the challah, but he makes, what do you make on Shabbat?
The chicken, the roast chicken.
But it's not just the chicken. Like, people every time ask for him for his recipe. He never did it. Secret recipe. But what's happening next week?
I'm gonna reveal it and give it out to everyone
On this challah bake.
No, I think you're so right that there's so much. There's a real transition point, inflection point happening in America now and the world, and so I've thought long and hard, and I think it's time to put this out as well. Just kidding. No, I think that we you know, I so much appreciate what Tiffany's been doing with this series and bringing people together at a very at the core level. Well, yeah, just.
Well, actually, yeah, I mean,
grassroots.
Baking. I was telling them about how the Phyllis Schlafly, how they were all baking to try to, but we're baking in a different way.
Yeah.
So Ken is going to be. Oh, actually, next week also, Rabbi Amichai Lau-Levi. I can't believe I just merged his name. He's also going to be on, and Ken's going to be doing his chicken. We're going to be making challah. Rosie and Bluma are going to be here. So it's like the whole mishpach. And then the week after that, we have Angela Duckworth, MacArthur Fellow, brilliant psychologist who wrote the book Grit, and she's going to be baking with her daughters. And then we're taking a break for the summer, just for a month. But this next 3 weeks, this one, next one, and the next one are just going to be they're all so powerful. They're all so different and powerful, but we really hope you join. And thank you, Ken, for sharing your top secret.
Of course. Don't worry. I don't want to raise expectations.
It's the best chicken ever. No. If you want to make a whole meal, we will supply that all for you.
We'll give out the recipe. Yeah, we'll put it online, and I'll walk you through it. We'll do it together.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
Thank you,
okay.
honey.
Good. And thank you all for being here and doing this. And thank you, Tiffany, for being amazing. I love you.
Mwah. I lucked out. I swear I lucked out. I know longer and longer, you know, it's almost our 22-year wedding anniversary. Oh my goodness. And you know, when you're young, you don't realize how much is just luck. And my parents were divorced, so I came from that kind of upbringing, but I'm so grateful I found a man that likes strong women. He's got 2 sisters and a very strong mom. And that's my biggest advice to anyone that's looking for the right man, is they need to love their mothers and hopefully have strong women in their lives, and then they will love strong women. And if you have someone that doesn't love strong women in their upbringing, they won't know how to deal with that. So it's great to be married to an equal who likes strong women. Okay. Kimberly, where are you? How's your challah doing, Kimberly?
Well, I think it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Is it like it's got some energy to it? Like it's got some buoyancy?
Yeah, it's looking good.
Now you said you buy challah for your kids. You make French toast. What do you do with it?
Yeah, I mean, I've never baked it before, so now I don't have to buy it at Safeway, which I don't like shopping at anyways. But yeah, usually I buy the cinnamon twist challah, and it's perfect for making French toast.
You know what I just heard, which I want to share, which we're still, in here. When you shop at a big store like Safeway or Whole Foods or something, because I've been thinking a lot about that, or Trader Joe's or whatever, that your risk for everything, right? It just so much, if you can find a local store that, because we do a combination of the ones we just mentioned, but those are the times when I do get most, like, I'm so conscious of just how many people have touched what I'm touching. And I'm really trying to think about that. I mean, as we're in this next phase, which is so, I don't know, it's like people are acting like things are going back to normal. And as you said, Livia, it's like, it's not back to normal. And I read this really interesting op-ed that it's the fear has gone down. Like it's there, but it's not like fear in your face. And so it's like, you know, AIDS still doesn't have a vaccine, and everyone's kind of lived with it. I mean, it's different than that, but it's interesting to think about that. And Angela Duckworth, who's going to be the guest speaker in a couple weeks, she wrote this great op-ed, which we will include, that talks about how, oh good, Dessa's here. Even if we discover a vaccine, only half of Americans will take it. Just sit with that for a second. Here's Odessa. Hi. You say hi to everyone. You want to do a little meeting? No. Okay. Dessa, what do you think about everything? You're the next generation. She quickly walks away. She's like, don't put me on the spot, Mom, like that. But yeah, so only half the people will take the vaccine. So suddenly the health issues on whether you're wearing a mask, whether you would take a vaccine. I mean, I just read that, that Trump is going to have people sign waivers that are going into an indoor convention on a horrible date, horrible, like symbolic thing, that they won't sue him for getting the virus if they go to his rally. I mean, it's just, anyways, I'm turning the anger into light. I'm turning the anger into challah. I'm kneading all my angst into the bread, and it actually will become fluffier. And we're kind of nearing the end of this incredible hour. And a couple things I want to say. Odessa, you're in the shot, just letting you know. Okay. My biggest fear lately has been when I thought I turned the Zoom off or the mute off and I didn't, and like, who knows what they heard. But we are going to send a follow-up link. So Kimberly's going to send us a list of links. We have links. Tanya, if there's any links of what you've said that you could put in the chat, because we're collecting this chat. And we will send a follow-up email that has a lot of what we discussed, even that op-ed that Angela wrote, and information about the next 2 holidays. We always love it when you invite your friends and family to just widen the circle. We always love it when you post your challahs on social media using #ZoomHollowBake. It's very fun if you go into that hashtag. There's hundreds of challahs in there, and how they tasted, and then the second part of the making the recipe, like you're gonna make this rise, let this rise all day long, like 5 hours. And in our follow-up email, it also says what to do in those 5 hours. So one of the most significant things I've learned doing these challahs is the second rise. And what I used to do is in 5 hours, Odessa would braid it, Bluma would paint it. We put the everything from an everything bagel on top, which you can get at Trader Joe's. We get it from a deli. And we would put it in the oven and have people over for Shabbat, which Some of you here have been to our house. I know Kimberly has, Sawyer has, and we've just served it. But what we learned is, because I have so many East Coasters, is we would let the challah do a second rise. And it would sometimes rise in an additional 3 hours, and it got so much fluffier. So my advice to everyone is that, like, in 5 hours, grate it, paint it with the egg wash, which will give you the ingredients for it, just an egg. Put the topping on, let it sit for another 3 hours, then put it in the oven. It will get that much fluffier. I've never done the salts at the end, which I just did. And last week I wrote a little poem called Second Rise. So Kimberly, do you want, or Tanya want to talk for a second while I go get that? Because I forgot it's in the other room and I wanted to read it. But Kimberly, do you want to share any thoughts while I go get that?
You know what? I think I'll pass it to Tanya, and then I'll just riff off of whatever brilliance she adds to the conversation. I'm gonna wash my hands.
Oh my goodness. So I'm putting some stuff in the chat for everyone. I put Tiffany's Unstoppable video, which you should check out. And if for any reason you haven't seen Killer Mike's speech in Atlanta and Stacey Abrams' op-ed, I just put those in the chat as well. So please check those out. Those are essential reads and viewing. And I just to, reiterate again, like the 4-point plan that I keep in my head: educate, donate, elevate, and activate. And elevate seems especially appropriate for a challah bake.
Thank you. And Kimberly, do you want to add anything to that? And then I have my...
Yeah, so just two quick things. One, I saw a video, it was like a 5-minute video posted on Facebook yesterday that I will share. And it was an African-American woman who was explaining, by using the game Monopoly as an example, of why African Americans are so incredibly frustrated, exhausted, and tired of having this seemingly same conversation about justice and equity. And she basically says, imagine if you're playing a game of Monopoly, and for 400 rounds of that, right, representing the 400 years, for 400 rounds of that, you weren't allowed to earn money or build wealth or anything, and everything that you earned and built actually went to your opponent who you were playing against. And then for 50 years after that, when you were actually allowed to earn money and build wealth, then the opposition came in and burned it all down to the ground. Speaking of the upcoming Trump rally in Tulsa, which was the site of the Tulsa riots, when KKK and others came through and burned to the ground an entire Black community that was considered to be the Wall Street of the Black community. And so she just, I think, really succinctly summed up the anger and frustration of African Americans in this country in an economic way, using the game of Monopoly. And so I will share that with you because I thought it was so powerful. And Monopoly is a game that, everybody knows and understands. And so that, and then secondly, just to speak to what Tanya was saying about the wonderful Betty and her wise words about this being an incredible opportunity for us to really reset in a real way. I want to read this poem that I think was by Leslie Dwight, and I thought it just was so perfect. What if 2020, and I'm sure many of you have seen it, it's been going around. What if 2020 isn't canceled? What if 2020 is the year we've been waiting for? A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw, that it finally forces us to grow. A year that screams so loud, finally awaking us from our ignorant slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change, declare change, work for change, become the change. A year we finally band together instead of pushing each other further apart. 2020 isn't canceled, but rather the most important year of them all. And I think that just so beautifully sums up the opportunity that we have in this moment. And I just want to encourage us to work in our individual and collective ways to raise the energy, the vibration, the frequency of the whole, and to inject as much love and positivity via our words, our actions, and our thoughts into refashioning and rebuilding this country so that we can make it great for many of us, finally, but to be a beacon of light for the rest of the world.
Oh, that was so beautiful. I mean, first of all, I'm so glad you read that poem. I just sent it to Sawyer as we've been struggling with the movie and said, maybe this poem needs to be in the movie. And it spoke to me so much. And Odessa just wrote on her arm this week, to form a more perfect union. And we need to be striving. And so much of, we never got close. And even the illusions of the moments when we thought we got close, but we have to always be inspired enough to strive. And I'm gonna read a poem too, that's called Second Rise, that I wrote last week. You think you have risen in the sun of thoughts, baked your ideas, braided, egg washed, sprinkled with crunchy salt, garlic, and onion biases. You think you are ready, but you are not. It takes a while to realize that it's all about the second rise. The yeast gets its second chance to fluff and grow, insights and perspective, to infuse the dough with lofty ideals, plans to be nourished and devoured. On that note, we got the cancel poem about society, the second rise. We're in a second rise here if we choose to make it. This has been such a beautiful hour together. I'm so grateful. You know, I don't normally post the recordings, but I think I might post this one, but we're definitely doing highlights. We're working on a film right now that we'll be sending, but this has been so meaningful. I needed it so much. I was feeling very depleted this week, and this really gave me a second rise. So I want to thank Tanya and Kimberly, my sisters in activism, and so many of you have been with me every week. Jennifer Steinman, who actually, she edited the Planned Parenthood film. Hello. And she edited my first Planned Parenthood film. That was many years ago. I wish that we didn't have to keep making Planned Parenthood films. How many years ago was that, Jennifer?
Oh God, 2001 maybe?
We made a film for, Planned Parenthood called Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. We'll include this link and the other one. So great to have you here, Jennifer.
Hey, Tiffany, sorry, that just reminded me what you just said. Speaking of Planned Parenthood, there's going to be an incredible conversation next Thursday that I'll send over the link for as well. It's called The State of the Affiliates, SCOTUS 2020. With everything that's going on, a lot of us are still not understanding the challenges that we are continuing to battle in the reproductive justice community. There is right now before the Supreme Court that will be decided in the next 8 days, a case that has the potential to weaken or even overturn Roe v. Wade. That is before the Supreme Court right now. And there are like 15 other similar cases right behind it. So there's going to be a conversation next Thursday. I'll be moderating it with a couple people, including Stacey Cross, who is the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Marmonte, which is, I believe, the second largest Planned Parenthood affiliate in the country. So that's a great conversation. I think a lot of folks on this call might be interested in hearing about the state of reproductive rights and abortion rights in this country. So I'd love to share that as well and have folks join if you're able to.
Absolutely, we will be there. It's such an important issue. And again, there's so many issues right now. So we can't forget the bigger ones, which is this election, reproductive rights, which we always have to stay focused on, always for our daughters. We just have to continue to stay focused on this issue.
Hey, Tiffany.
Yeah, who's that?
It's Tina. So I just posted in the chat.
Can you turn on your video and this is one of my best friends. Can you turn on your video, darling? And I can.
It's not really a great day for video.
Okay. But I get it.
But I've been listening the whole time, and I just posted in the chat and maybe you talked about it because I've been in and out, but Oprah hosted a 2-day summit called Where Do We Go From Here? And the first day was identifying the challenges, and the second day was proposals for solution. And she had Stacey Abrams, both times. She had Mayor Keisha Lance Bonham, she had Rashad Robinson, David Oluwad, Ibram Kendi, Nicole Hannah-Jones, really Ava DuVernay. It was just remarkable. And I watched the whole thing live the first time and the recorded version the second time. And I highly recommend that people check it out. It's on her own page on Facebook. I think it's on YouTube as well now.
Okay.
And it's a 2-day summit. One was, they're each an hour, so it's not that big. And the voices that she curated and the way that she moderated it was nothing short of remarkable.
Okay, we'll put that, Kabrina, if you can add that to the link. We have so many great links. This is going to be such a yummy follow-up list. Thank you for that, Tina. And Tina's she's the godmother of our puppy, I should point out.
Is that the Tina who's the sister of my editor?
Yes, Tanya, wait, Tina, wait.
Oh my gosh.
Lisa Sharkey is editing. And why don't you, Tanya, tell us about your new book and when it's coming out and the name and everything. It's important.
Okay, so Tina's sister Lisa is my editor, and I'm having
At HarperCollins. Yeah.
At Harper. It's coming out early next year. It's called Assume Nothing. It's on a very difficult topic, but hopefully it'll do some good. It's a story of intimate violence, and what I have been alarmed by since the pandemic began is how domestic violence rates have risen all over the world, because the most dangerous place for a woman is in her home. So hopefully the book will do some good, and it's coming out early next year. Assume Nothing.
Yes, Tanya, Lisa's told me all about you and how enthusiastic she is about the book. And so Lisa's actually how I met Tiffany, because Lisa used to be Tiffany's producer when Tiffany was the cyber correspondent on Good Morning America. So the world is full circle.
It's full circle.
Well, it's especially full of circles right now. I mean, the thing I say about this moment is like the universe sent us this big wake-up call that we are actually connected.
Yes, in a beautiful, this was so, oh my God, I'm like tearing up. Yes, yes. And when Tanya's book comes out, I will do, I was gonna have a book party at my house, but we'll do some kind of Zoom. If we can have a book party, we'll have that. And we'll do definitely some kind of Zoom discussion, because I've read the book. It's so courageous and honest. And it has an amazing resource section at the back for any women looking to find resources or get out of situations. So it's really needed and powerful. Oh my gosh. I love you all. I feel so much love. I'm so grateful to Tanya and Kimberly and to Sawyer, my producer, who I talk with every day, and we talk about all this stuff. And this was all that we could have hoped for. He's in Maine, and we're moving out of our film studio this week. It's been very emotional. And I love this hour. This was everything in Crest, everything you're doing in the community, Kabrina for being on social, all of you for being with us. So I'm gonna turn on, everyone can, let's have let me unmute you all. And let's have a round of applause for, I'm unmuting you all for Kimberly and Tanya.
Thank you.
Bye everyone, we'll email you the follow-up.
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect way to spend the morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was uplifting.
Oh, hi Emma. Thank Emmy. Yay. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. There's Jill. Oh, I feel that hand on the heart. Bye, Mary Michael. Oh, so great. Bye, Craig.